He was memorable right from the outset, and that developed into, he was my best friend in life. I'll never have a better friend or meet a more generous human being.
What made him a good politician was that he wasn't the superficial type. Actually, he just cared about people. You know, if people would phone him at 11 o'clock at night, they could phone him at 1 o'clock at night and they would get the answer from him. And he would travel, you know, he wasn't just the MSP for Glasgow, that was his official title. He was the MSP for anybody who called him up across Scotland, and he would make sure he would be there. So what made him good was very simple, is that he cared.
And that is how he arrived in 1961 as an immigrant who spoke virtually no English. He was meant to have been met at, I suppose, Aberdeenshire Airport, as it would be then, Glasgow Airport, I think by a cousin who didn't turn up. There had been some sort of mix-up. And there he was, penniless, with no English, at Glasgow Airport, with nowhere to go. And a bus driver, took him onto the bus, off his route, took the scrap of paper that Bashir had giving the address where he was meant to go, and took him there off his route, which is Bashir, who was later obviously on the buses with a driver, told him, no, if you go off your route, that's a potential big offence, dismissal offence. But this bus driver did it to help this penniless Asian who arrived at Glasgow Airport. And Bashir, he never met that bus driver again, even though he worked in the buses himself, never knew his name, never met him again. But that simple act of human kindness, translated itself into Bashir's view of Scotland. And I always said that Bashir, for then on, was always wanting to find the circumstances in which he could repay that act of generosity.
There was a wonderful relationship that my father had with the Scottish people, and he had that throughout his life. It was he loved everything about Scotland, and he felt that the people were kind, they were generous, they were understanding, and they would. So he saw no barrier in his communication with them and their communication with him, even although actually my father was proud to be a Muslim and a practicing Muslim, but he always found that the Scottish people were very, very embracing of his religion and of his culture. He went into business, so he saved up enough money, and he got a small shop, and it was a little shop in Denniston, and very, very small shop, maybe 200 square feet, 20 square meters, and he didn't have a car at that point, and I remember he used to go to the cash and carry, and he'd have a black bag, and he'd put in what he could into the black bag, and then take that on the bus to the shop, and then stock the shop, and then sell the groceries, etc. From there, he went on to buy a slightly bigger shop, and from there he went on to then have a restaurant, and the restaurant was probably, I think, in the late 70s. And at that point in Glasgow, there wasn't an awful lot of Indian restaurants. There was only the Shish Mahal and the Kohinoor, and there was our restaurant that was out in Rutherglen. So he went into from retail. He went into catering. I think one of the kind of important points or turning points in his life was when they set up the Pakistani Welfare Trust. And the Pakistani Welfare Trust was set up, I think, in the mid 80s. And this was a trust that was set up to, in essence, to help with deaths within the Asian community. It was an apolitical trust, but it was just to improve community relations between the police and the community and the politicians in the community. And every year, so they would invite somebody from the Labour Party and somebody from the Conservative Party, and the late Donald Dewar, would always come. And he was a mainstay in the early days of the Pakistani Welfare Trust annual dinners in the Normandy Hotel. And I remember the second, maybe it was the third or the fourth year in, my father, he said to me, do you think we should invite the SNP? And I said, well, I think you should. And they said, I don't know anything about the SNP. What's the SNP? And he thought maybe it's a bit like the BNP, and it's a racist organisation, etc. And I said, no, well, actually, the SNP believe in independent Scotland. So they're a party that wants Scotland to be independent. And, they're a main party within Scotland. And absolutely, you should invite them to the dinner. And so they did. And it was Alex Salmond, who was the leader of the SNP. We weren't expecting the leader of the SNP to actually come to the dinner, but it was Alex Salmond that came to the dinner. And from that point onwards, there was a wonderful relationship, a bond that formed between Alex Salmond and my father that would last for the rest of his life.
I think Bashir was also involved in politics. It was just a question of whether you get into party politics. But Bashir really hit upon the idea, we had a discussion that he should form the Scots Agents for Independence, and he should form it at an SNP conference in probably about 1995, I think, in Perth. And Bashir came through with a number of people, I think Abdul Majid, for example, and a number of others, and came through at the Perth conference. And I suppose they and the SNP didn't quite know what to expect. And Bashir made a speech, and he just got he got the biggest reception of the conference. It was just a wonderful moment. And he used a phrase which he then used every speech he made, and it is just a wonderful phrase. He said, look, he knows that the SNP are not interested in where people come from, but where we're going together. And he used it again and again. It's such a wonderful, and I always remember the first time it was used, and the response, the wave of emotion and support that came from the conference. And from then, that was it. That was Bashir and the SNP. It was a match, and he just went on from strength to strength.
Mohammed Surwer was the councillor for Pollokshields, and Mohammed Surwer had been recently elected as an MP, and so there was a vacancy for the council seat in Pollokshields, and I remember the party asking my dad to stand for as a councillor for the Pollokshields ward, and my father didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it at all. So I think he initially had said no, and they said no, we want you to stand, and and I think he said no again. But then I think eventually he did. So, and it was a hard fought election because it was a Labour stronghold, etc. And he was up against the Labour Party, who were strong in terms of support and also financially. And my father didn't have an awful lot of resources, but he fought his campaign, etc. And he went on to win that. Myself and my brother Sajid, we were going to the inauguration with him, and we were taking the train to Waverley from Glasgow Queen Street to Waverley, and I remember going to the house, to Mum and Dad's house, and seeing my dad, and I was expecting him to be wearing a suit and a tie, and which is what normally he wore. He wore a kind of smartly. He was always smartly dressed. Smart casual was probably his way of dressing, so it was. I was a little bit surprised, and I did say to my dad, why are you not wearing a suit and a tie? He said, because this is part of what I am. This is part of what I am, and and I remember being a little bit, well, Dad, I think you should maybe change, and he says, no, this is part of me, and this is what I want to wear. So we set off, and we jumped on the train, and my dad had his salwar kameez on and his sherwani, which is the long overcoat, and he had the hat, the Jinnah hat, and we made our way to Edinburgh Waverley from Queen Street. The wonderful thing about my father was that he had this ability to basically maintain his identity, and he was very, very proud of his identity by becoming somebody who supported Scotland and Scottish independence, and being a patriot for Scotland, he didn't. It wasn't at the exclusion of his previous identity. He took the oath in Urdu first of all, and then he took the oath in English, and that was a very, very proud moment for me.
In 2009, not long before he died, we were in a quandary because the other parties combined together to vote down the budget at the very start of the year. And what I remember, we had a meeting, group meeting, what we're going to do, combine to vote down the budget, what do we do, we call an election, we'll have another vote, whatever. And Bashir was the last to speak. He said, reintroduce the budget. If we win, we win. If they vote it down, we hold an election, and we'll win the election. It was the most effective contribution in that entire debate, and it ended that meeting in firm resolve of a determination of knowing what to do. So he was a great human being. He was also a very considerable politician.
I've known him for a long, long time, and as soon as I was born, and he was a family friend of my dad's for decades and decades. I used to know him as Chacha Mango, Uncle Mango. We used to know him as, because he used to come with crates of mango around to the house. And, and he was famous for that, actually. So he helped me get this internship with Alex Salmond when I was in university. And from there, I got working in the party, involved in the party. And actually, Alex Salmond, then the First Minister, didn't let me go ever since then. And he got elected in 2007. He phoned me in a matter of hours. I was with him when he got elected, but then went home and tried to catch some sleep, but he phoned me actually in a couple of hours and he said, when do we start? And I said, we? He said, yeah. He said, you're working for me, right? He didn't give me a choice.
He said that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where we're going as a nation. And I think that's very, very important. I think that is possibly his legacy, that what's important is that we do our best for the country or the place that we live in. And if that happens to be Scotland, then the Scottish Asian person should add value to this country. So they should embrace it. They should want to make this country a better place, because it's a fantastic country. So and my debt, the debt of gratitude that I have to this wonderful nation of ours, that gave my father such a wonderful life, from the point that he stepped off the bus at Buchanan Street bus station and was lost, to a journey of almost 50 years that ended up as being the first Asian member of the Scottish Parliament.
People in the Christian faith, some people, they wear this bracelet, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And not emulating up to prophetic status, of course, but I think to myself often when I'm in politics, I think, what would Bashir have done? Because he always had a better way of doing things. Because again, regardless of the political stance of a person, he treated them with the utmost respect. So the biggest impact he's had on me is how to treat people.
Wanted somebody who exemplified the best virtues of the community. I think we all wanted that we couldn't have had a finer person than Uncle Bashir.